You guys ready to start?
I was the only one here.
Say, what event's happening after today? I think there's some signings maybe. There's nothing else happening?
Not happening.
Say, is this the only thing maybe?
The primary has a little show.
They do? Okay. Say, we are definitely going to honor time. In fact, we'll probably get out here even earlier than 5:30. To be honest, this meeting is really just meant to kind of be a closure for the year, to talk about some things that we've talked about in prior meetings, to kind of dovetail back on to last meeting and just kind of close up and tighten up some things like the CNA, the district improvement plan, some policies, and just some compliance pieces that I want to make sure we just hit and that you guys have the opportunity to kind of give feedback on if you'd like to. And then just to give you guys the opportunity to take some time to reflect on this year and just to kind of talk about some good things or things that, you know, that might be top of mind, or just some things that you might have questions about, or just for next year, maybe something that we can do a little bit better at, or take the next step on, or just overall improve, or not, or just say, hey, is this something we really have to do next year or not? And just know that at any point, anytime, that can be something of a discussion or a conversation from anybody. As a DEIC member, definitely that's within your right to do so. So just something to be thinking about as a member, where if you are noticing something or just you're at a good point where you are comfortable talking about something that you would like to see done differently, or a request for change, or why we should possibly make a change, just know that this is always this space for that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be during this meeting or during a specific part of an agenda with this as an item. It can always come at any time. And so just having said that, is there anything that anybody would like to kind of just like straight off share about this year that just either because it was different from last year, or just you can really point to and say, this was something like I want to talk about this year? Is there anything like that that was different from last year that's new this year, or just something that was a highlight or a success, or just something real positive that happened?
Teachers being included in like the hiring process of the primary for the new principal. I feel like a lot of teachers really like that.
That happened since I've been around.
Oh, yeah. That's very rare.
And they have parent buy-in too, because I know they had a parent sitting.
Excited to meet them.
So having more of a, I'd say a shared kind of decision-making for hiring when it comes to stakeholders. So having more of an equal distribution of stakeholders rather than just all from one area.
Teachers, they like having a voice, and I feel like they felt like they had a voice, felt heard.
Teacher voice. What other stuff would be along those lines?
I thought the calendar process, there was a lot involved in it. You know, it was.
Oh, the calendar committee?
Yeah, the different.
That was this year, right?
Yes.
Does that just seem, does that feel like that happened like forever ago?
Because there was more than one committee, so
Yeah.
I felt like there was a,
Well, I just say that.
it was
I'm
very
like,
well thought out.
I'm like, Yolanda, tell us all about that calendar committee. That just seems like forever ago at this
I
point.
thought that was a good, I mean, it was, everybody, I feel like a lot of people had.
Than last year when we did the calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you all feel like that's something we should continue as this setup, to have that as a separate
There was a lot
committee?
of voices in it, not just, a lot of input.
Then we will definitely have that kind of be the same. And we'll go through that process very similar to the process we went through it this year. In fact, I would say it was pretty good because I've already had like maybe 2 or 3 different districts around here asking about that and just how it went. Because we do have it up on the website, so anybody who would like to look at what we did can. And I guess people are starting to look at how they're going to do their process next year, because I've already had a couple superintendents reach out to me about how we did it this year. So kudos to that, and just knowing that as we move forward with technology in the room, and just knowing that one of the initiatives for us is to be more transparent and communicative about our resources and just what we're doing as a district. You'll notice on the website, more and more is being put on there for next year's online enrollment, registration, things like that. So a lot of stuff like that starting to make its way to the website. And so if you don't check out our website often, you should, at least once a week at minimum, just so that you are aware of what is happening there, or just possibly news that you may have missed, because we do have a scroll of announcements. And Rosie, is there anything else you'd like to talk about with the website, or just communication in general.
With Parent Square, I think that was a big
Just
success.
big change this year.
Yeah.
I got used to it. I like it.
Yeah.
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 I like it.
Change is always hard, but I think this was a really good decision made by the district to combine our efforts in having one district communication platform. And we're still going to try to work on doing that. What else did you say about?
Just the website.
The website,
And
we're
just
trying to work on that.
Trying to understanding its limitations, but also recognizing we can do a little bit more than what we have been doing. And so just knowing that we're trying to take more and more steps to making that a better thing for everybody.
And if it's something that we decide to move on to switch to something different, that could be something that we could discuss in these meetings next year
Exactly.
too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
And with that said, one thing we are looking at maybe changing or doing different is the website. Knowing that currently we're wanting it to look better, but ultimately when we're ready to kind of review contracts and whether or not we're going to extend that contract with our current service, that definitely I want that to be a conversation with the DEIC so that you all can give input as far as that piece. And if you have anything you'd like to contribute on that, let me know now so that when we're ready to revisit again, we can. Because the website and the next year too, that's going to be a big piece of what we're going to do as far as how we're going to kind of broadcast and showcase the bond and the new buildings that are going to be created, and just wanting to kind of showcase that with a new look. I'm kind of thinking that a website that's going to be a little bit newer, a little bit fresher to kind of highlight and spotlight our new, that's going to kind of go together.
And I know we've discussed this, but the contract on our website is over next year. So we have another year with Final Site. But when you're talking about changing a website, that conversation needs to start at least a year earlier so that we can make a smooth transition if we decide to move to something else. So we need to start having those conversations.
Yep, like right now, like now.
I think relative to other districts around the area, our website is rather user-friendly.
I think so. That's awesome.
One of my kids goes to Odom because that's where we live. And their website is horrible, like you can't find anything. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the positive
Yes.
feedback. That's I won't say it's rare,
Yeah.
but definitely appreciate it, because I would agree with you. We're definitely not at like the worst, but we know as a district and what we're wanting to do, we can be better, for sure. Does anybody else have anything along those lines? Even if it's not positive at this point, like if it's something that, when are we ever going to get to this one thing that definitely needs to change or be better? Is there anything like that that's like front and center or just staring at you in the face right now? No?
I guess collaborating with districts, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, but having some kind of plan to where we can kind of bridge those gaps. I feel like that's what I hear teachers talking about, like primary.
Vertical and horizontal alignment.
I think like I want to see that change next year, not just like talk about it, but something happen to where.
Movement on it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sham, do you have a second? Just wanting to kind of fold you into the conversation about the vertical and the horizontal alignment, and talking with the group about how we can improve for next year, knowing that because we don't have a lot of campus to campus like talk and time, just knowing that that's a kind of a need and a want, how to try to work towards building some of that time in so we can do some of those things.
Absolutely, and I think I talked to the fifth grade, Ledesma, and that's something that they really want to focus on next year. They brought that up to me as well when I was at the campus, that they really want to start just, kind of like streamlining and just having those conversations, so just so that we're all on the same page and we know what the expectations are below, at their grade level. And so, yeah, that was one of the big things that we want to focus on next year.
Even besides the curriculum and the teachers, from a parent's perspective, it's not always a smooth transition from campus to campus as a parent. Especially with kids that have 504 accommodations and stuff like that. Because I know with me, and I had already talked to Dr. D, because I have one that has accommodations, and I wanted both campuses to kind of meet with me so that we could be proactive versus reactive. And so it was, not as smooth, but it's you know, I think for parents that have those kind of kids, it would be beneficial to have that conversation.
Right. And then also I've met with some assistant principals and, you know, and I'm speaking mostly for like the primary and the intermediate, like they really want to get together and look at think of themselves as one campus, not as the primary and the intermediate, and get together and have some of those common practices, you know, even with discipline, you know, kind of streamlining those processes across. So like when a student leaves the primary and they go to the intermediate, you know, it's not this drastic shock or, you know, they're completely, well, they did it here and, you know, so we want to start seeing ourselves as not in, you know, on separate islands, but hey, we're working together as one. We just happen to be separate, but we are still one big campus. So we're moving in that direction. Baby steps, but we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
That's phase 3. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So-
And just knowing that that's kind of the new philosophy or just kind of belief system that we're trying to embrace all together, then it's a matter of, okay, great, now that we're all believing and wanting the same things, how do we kind of implement and make that a reality? And knowing that through our kind of means of making some of this happen, whether it's through this committee, the calendar committee, possibly even the SHAC committee with things that they're wanting to do and see different for next year. I just know that if we don't have the time or the space or the opportunity to really do some of the things that we're wanting to do or see different for next year, how do we work to create that time or space so that we can do these things? And then, once we know we can do it, what do we really then want that to look like? How often, who's involved, what are we gonna try to, you know, set as a goal or a target? I just know that it's so powerful to have the vertical and horizontal alignment and those meetings, but it's also super crucial to honor that time and to create that time, because if not, all the things that we're wanting, it's a kind of a waste of time because it never gains traction. Can't ever put the rubber to the road with any of it.
And I will say, to really have a true vertical alignment, like those conversations, we have to be on the same page when we're with instruction. And so I know we have Eureka, so now you can truly have those conversations about how students are really performing, or just talk about how they're doing just in general with instruction. Primary has decided they want to continue with Wonders, which is good because we're moving in that direction where it's all going to be the same curriculum, you know. And so the way your flair of how you deliver that lesson, that's up to the teacher. You know, the teacher can do anything like that, but at least like the level of questioning will be the same. The same assignments will be the same, so that you can truly have those conversations and look to see how students are really, how they're really performing. Otherwise, you're just always comparing apples to oranges. And so I think moving next year, you know, we start with Amplify, Eureka, and let me tell you, when we're doing those walkthroughs, we can definitely see the consistency, the alignment.
Oh, yeah.
It was just
It's night and day.
amazing to see that. And so even though primary and intermediate, they're still, you know, using different curriculum, the alignment, there's going to be some consistency so we can truly have those conversations. But it's hard to have those conversations when, you know, everyone is, it's like they're doing their own thing. And so we're working in that direction, and you guys are doing a great job. I mean, so, but, you know, these are things that take time, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. So I'm excited.
Yay.
Yes,
So
yes.
great. But yes, definitely one thing we're going to be putting in place, just knowing though currently we don't necessarily have the time or space for it, but we will work towards building that time and space
And we
in.
have, yeah, and it's hard, you know, we have 4 days, and then we only have our one PD day
Yeah,
in September the 9th, and then January the 6th, so we gotta,
make the most.
and we need a
of
hard
full-time.
schedule those dates, so we, you know, we set them ahead of time and we stick to that. So we'll be getting with Mr. Crabtree, and for the elementary, and Ms. Lucas, and then for the middle school, we'll get with Adias and we'll get with Gabe and Lamar and see how we can have those meet your needs as well, okay?
Yep.
Okay,
All right, Dr.
all
Shaw.
right. Pull me out if you need me, I'll be here working.
Anybody else have anything like that? Because that's a big thing that we're going to actually do for next year. We really are. It's just how are we going to make it work and then the setup and the logistics. But knowing that that's the next step, and of course, focusing on curriculum and instruction, talking a little bit about the K through 12, kind of just doing some different things and streamlining and being more consistent at that level. Is there anything from like the secondary level or just elementary versus secondary, or if we're wanting to talk more about kind of just K through 5, 6 through 12? Is there anything that at those levels we feel like needs to have more of a focus or attention, or anything that should start kind of entering into the conversation for change? Anything like that? Because nothing has been said about discipline from this committee this year. It's very strange to me. It's very strange to me.
I think
No one said anything about it, so it's almost like out of sight, out of mind, you know?
Well, I don't really have anything to say about discipline, but like from a high school campus perspective, I would like something to be the same from one year to the next. I feel like every year it's like a whole new ball game. And as a teacher, it's hard to keep up, and then the kids are confused
Like,
all
what
the
kind of
time.
ball game, though, are we talking
Like,
about?
Like just
Going from
the
like
structure of
soccer to like
classes.
water polo?
No,
or
like the
what?
structure of our classes changing, or our grading
okay.
system changing, or like it feels like every year there's a big change on our campus.
Like the structure changes, so
Yeah.
it's hard to maintain
And I
consistency.
think a big part of that was our pathways getting our pathways had huge changes over the last 3 years. And the kids who are graduating right now didn't really have pathways as freshmen. And so like, we're trying to play catch up as a CTE teacher. Like, we're trying to play catch up with these kids to make sure that they're completing their pathways, or getting their endorsement, they're getting their certification, they're getting that CCMR point that they need for graduation. And so, I mean, I think that'll start to like smooth itself out as we go forward, because now these kids are on a pathway, and the pathways are pretty aligned now. I feel like those are good. But it's just like we go from block English, block algebra, now we're not going to have block algebra. So it's like we are going to have block algebra. See, I was told we weren't going to have block algebra. So like, see that this is what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
So like I feel like I don't know.
Once the dust settles on the are we not, the majority of what we are doing is going to continue unless there is a change, but I'm not quite sure on that one yet.
Apparently, our scores were pretty good in December, so we
They
get
actually-
to stay blocked. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do so.
Sorry, we did so well. You have to really force your hand to change, but why would you if it's working? So is that kind of what you're telling me? Okay. With that said, it's going to be more stable knowing that with the legislative session, with the whole revamp of CTE, that's over with. They're not going to mess with that for a while. At least I think so.
Yeah, no, I think
At least
CTE is like making.
Yeah.
I think that one's
The dust is finally going to settle, and that one's going to stay pretty much intact. So the fact that we've gone through all those updates and upgrades, I'd say it's probably at a good place now to truly be where we can hit year one next year and let it be consistently done for multiple years in a row without any changes if we don't want to make any. That's CTE. When it comes to like other things like just classroom management, student discipline, social emotional, that type of realm, because if we're thinking like in another part of the educational world, like that's another key pillar, another part that as a committee we've never really talked about, at least for this year. Is there anything that needs to be said or discussed so at least we're not kind of leaving that pillar like untouched?
I think social and emotional is big, and we have nothing like, I do social and emotional time in my room, but it's not like a must. Not every teacher does it. And I feel like now these kids have so much anxiety. And in a second grade classroom, I feel like that wasn't normal. And I know that if you don't address those behaviors at the primary, they only get worse. Yes. And that's like the conversation that we're having is like, we have to like help them, meet them at where they're at, kind of get them out of like leaving the classroom for behaviors, because it gets worse. And because every teacher handles it different, there's no consistency. And then there's no support when, if you write them up for a referral, it doesn't fix anything. Yes, it's on their paperwork, but okay, go to the office, you get yelled at, they call your parents, you go back, and it's just.
Some kids like to go to the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there has to be something more. And I feel like I see it at the primary, and I know if it doesn't get fixed, it just.
Yeah.
Oh, and we see that. At the high school, you can see like kids that have just like had
You just felt through the
issues,
cracks.
and then just gets. But I mean, talking about referrals, like as a teacher in high school, I sometimes don't want to write them up because once you write them up, you've kind of lost them because they don't trust you anymore. Like, it's better to try to work it out yourself with them because once you write them up, they're like, oh, she's written me off. She's saying it like, okay,
But then if you write them up,
that's tough.
if you don't write them up, then you get in trouble because there's no documentation. But I don't like referrals because you burn the bridge with them.
Yeah.
And then some parents, I had a parent threaten to shave their kid's hair off. And I mean, I'm not gonna have him get his hair shaved off and get a referral. Like, that's extreme. I get the point. It was a tough dad, but it's like emotionally
Like
not
military
good.
style stuff or what? Like
He had cool blonde hair for baseball,
Okay.
and the dad was gonna shave it off. And I never called dad about that again.
Gotcha.
Because it just did more harm than it did good. And then it was building that trust back up and kind of.
Wonders
So-
has a social emotional component. If we follow it through, it does have one for each unit.
Does every campus have, because I know we have like a social worker on our campus, does every campus have one or just at the upper levels?
No, we have communities and schools,
Okay,
which is similar to what they would provide as a social worker, but in a different kind of capacity, but
right,
very
because we have
similar.
both, right?
Yeah.
And
We have,
Ms. Moogie said that she sometimes goes to the.
okay, because I know that does help a lot.
Of course, but as you know, for the thousands of students we have and then the 1 or 2 or 3 social workers and communities and schools employees that we have, that's definitely not the ratio to help meet all those needs.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the curriculum and then what as the teacher, just as we delivering of the instruction to students, how can we have that impact or what can we do to have a positive impact on that? Unless we create time in the day or as a district streamline that expectation, it's going to be very hard to be consistent if the campus or even the district doesn't have an expectation or a clear understanding of what we really want that to look like. I will say that as a dual member of the DIC and SHAC committee, that is stuff that we also talk about in SHAC too, the SEL piece, and knowing that in addition to SEL, we also really don't have human sexuality instruction, also as a piece of our curriculum for the district. And so when we talk about SEL and human sexuality instruction, that is kind of being put on SHAC for next year. And that's going to be a big project for SHAC and those members where we are going to look at revamping and pretty much adopting a social and emotional learning curriculum in addition to one that can hopefully help support a human sexuality instruction curriculum. So that is going to be kind of the big 2 projects and tasks for that committee that will kind of go back and forth between this committee, obviously, just because it's important for you all to know that work, but know too that that work is being done over here. So no fear, just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean nothing's being done. It's just going to happen over here. And if there's any other kind of feedback or thoughts on those 2 pieces, again, I know we don't talk a whole bunch about those things here, but knowing those are things we need, areas that we can improve upon, and just knowing that if we do, maybe we can help decrease or mitigate some of the discipline or just help with classroom management or better offer that support to new teachers as they come into the district. That will take care of all those things by doing that work with that. So that's also a kind of year at a glance and a look into the future. So if that is of interest to you, there is nothing stopping a DIC member from also being a part of the SHAC committee too. So.
Come on over.
Yeah,
The water's fine.
Yeah, come on over.
Since we're talking about discipline, what is the future plan for DAP? Because I will tell you that I have probably had at least 1 or 2 students in DAP for almost the entire year. It's frustrating as a teacher because at one point they were over in the ag building earlier this year.
Yeah.
We didn't know until about halfway through the first semester that there weren't enough devices, yet we were told assignments needed to be online. Kids can't get work done. Parents are mad. Who are they mad at? Me, because I'm emailing them that their kids aren't passing. You know, like, what is like the future of that? Because it feels like I go to ISS, I go to PASS on my campus, and then I have DAP. And I teach all day long, like I don't have extra periods off, and I'm a core tested subject. Like I feel very spread thin.
Have you had those conversations with your principal or just like the immediate campus
I
admin?
feel like that's more of a district situation. I mean, DAP is for the district, so like,
You think that, but our principals are the ones that manage the DAP.
right, but I mean, now they are on a different campus, but then I'm like getting emails that, oh, you should go over there, and I don't know, like, I've worked at a lot of different, like, districts. Never was there a DAEP housed on campus.
Right.
Or off campus where a teacher was responsible for instruction and for assignments. So I guess that's where I'm like, what? Like, it just puts another extra thing on my plate, and I'm talking 1 or 2 kids are now getting all of this attention from me when I have 100 sitting in class with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I do.
like, there's gotta be a better way, because those kids aren't getting what they need. They can't get it from me because I don't have enough time to give them what they need, because I'm on a different campus with time that is, first of all, it's either PLC time that I'm supposed to be in or conference time. So you're gonna give me an extra period to go teach DEP? Because we're not meeting those kids' needs then. And then they can't even transition back into class when they get back to us, because have anxiety about it, because they've been sitting in a cubicle not talking to anyone probably for 45 days. And that's if they went when they were supposed to. I've had some that have stayed the entire first semester.
Yeah.
I have one that has been on campus and either sits in ISS or PASS and has not transitioned back into my class. And they're talking about maybe the last 5 days of school. Like, I don't know, there's gotta be a better way to do this.
Let me follow up with the principals about that, since that's kind of where DAP stays at that level. I'm not as familiar with DAP because that type of work never makes it to my level, so I don't get involved as much, but I'm gonna get involved now. So I will definitely check into that and just figure out what's going on and what we can do better. Because I know with this year, with some of the changes from the years past, that was some of the learning curve on our end to get through and get better. But let me see just where we are with that and figuring out what we can do, especially with the new principals coming in, how we can make DAP a better thing for everybody.
Well, just a suggestion, because I taught in Flower Bluff, and when I was out there, the kids who went to DAP were actually withdrawn from our classes.
Right, that's probably because they had their own.
Right, but so I don't know.
Campus.
Well, they
Campus
were, but that's basically what they are now, is they're on their own campus. And so I know that the people who are like the staff members that are there are not like certified in all these things. But if there was a middle school history teacher that had 1 period a day that they went and taught middle school history at, because then that teacher would be responsible for the DAP kid grades instead of all of these teachers having to try to do that. Because I've had kids in DAP too, and some of them go, some of them don't, some of them do work, some of them don't, and it is hard to keep up with because we don't see them. It's not like when it was on campus, we could just go down there during our conference period for a few minutes.
That's the change, because we originally had DAP on campus.
Yes.
Now that we have moved it technically off campus, but here's where the kicker is. Even though we moved it off campus, because it doesn't have its own campus number, it doesn't have its own campus budget, it doesn't have its own campus principal, technically, on paper, it still looks like it's
part of the middle
on
school,
campus.
it's part of the high school.
And so we're still trying to treat it that way, because on paper, that's the way it is. But as we're learning the fact that it's on campus, and technically it's really not, that's where the issues are, I'm going to assume, are starting to kind of come about from that disconnect right there. So either we need to make it its own campus with its own budget and blah, 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 or try to figure out a way to make it more of an on-campus solution so that we're not running into the being stretched and pulled and just not being efficient with the time anymore. Is that kind of where I think it is? Okay.
I know that in previous meetings with Mr. Alvarado, he's talked about putting actual teachers out there.
That's,
like the math teacher.
and that's moving it
science
more towards
teacher.
its own kind of campus.
Because, like she said, the ladies that are out there, they don't know
Yeah.
algebra, geometry.
It's just a
You know,
pair that got sent over there.
They're just watching them, and the kids have no idea what's going on.
Okay, that's really good feedback. See, I would never have known that if I didn't ask that question.
Well, and I think there's only like 2 of them, right?
there's
Just
two.
and I don't even know how many kids are really there, but the kids, it's very much just what the kids want to do, you know, like there's no one there to kind of keep them on track. And then even when, there's no structure. So then when they come back to campus and there's all this structure,
Yeah.
like they can't handle it. Because for at
I'm-
least a 6 weeks.
I'm not going to say the word assume, but because the requirement for DAP, and it's been a minute since I've looked at that stuff, but I do know that there's a thing called the transition plan that's required for students to have in place to help with the very same thing you just said. I'm going to say, I can't wait to look at all the transition plans to see exactly how they've been built and created for those students to have that success when they come back, because that's how we guarantee their success, by having that transition plan, that prior meeting, so that everyone's aware of the expectation and what needs to happen for that student to be successful. Because if that's not happening, if we're not doing the transition plans, well, how can we expect them to have transitional success? Probably not going to have it if we're not meeting about it and planning for it.
But like she said, if there's no structure there, they're gonna wanna keep going back because
Yes,
they
and
can
of course, and
basically
if
do whatever
we
they
back all the
want.
way back up to the original problem with the structure and just the setup, that's definitely where we need to begin, for sure. But if in our setup, if we're not doing things from beginning to end, like as kids enter and then exit and return, if we're not transitioning them through the plan, that's just another thing that needs to be discussed and kind of figured out, because that's one key piece missing if that's not happening, for sure. So it sounds like we got some DAP work to do. Okay. Say, anybody else have anything other items or just anything from their world? Don't be bashful, don't be shy. This is just this time.
For our campus, because we do have the babies,
Yep.
we have a little warrior academy, and it teaches them social skills, because a lot of them don't have it.
Yeah.
And like they transition like to them, I think most of the time it's during wind time. But they go for like a few minutes a day and they go over social. But my thing was just, we don't have enough personnel for that. We have Miss Christina and she's a para, but it's like I need another para. Because she sees so many kids and you can tell it helps.
She's stretched thin.
And she is stretched extremely thin. And our campus needs that. Because yes, we have PASS, but they can't go to PASS
Yeah, it's
unless
different.
they have it on their plan.
And it takes a
You know what I
long
mean?
time to
And
get
it
them on
takes
PASS.
an
They need
extremely
it.
long time to get them there. So it's like we used a little warrior academy to kind of help
Yeah.
substitute, but it helps tremendously. But we only have one person and she is stretched extremely thin because she does all grade levels, pre-K to 2. And it's just,
I'm glad you said that
we
to me.
need another person like her to help.
Okay.
Because like she can't even have lunch half the time because she has all these kids. But she's teaching them. I mean, throughout the year, I've seen several
Yeah, I've
kids
had my kids
transition
reduce their time
to where,
because they've gone
yeah,
better.
they don't
My
even
own
need to go.
Well, like, yeah.
My own son,
we
he
all
was
have our-
with Christina, and he's gotten so much better. I love Warrior Academy.
And
There's
they-
a reason why he's not going to Odom, because they don't have.
It helps.
But
It helps.
it really
Yeah.
helps, especially with their social skills and teaching them how we're supposed to be, and I mean, she's wonderful.
Strategies
But it's
on
like,
how to
yes.
control your emotions. I had
But we
kids
need
going
like
every
another
day.
person
Okay.
there. Like
Yeah.
we need another person to be there to help her. And then I feel like we could help even more students by doing that as well. But yeah.
Definitely on the list for Mr. Crabtree to get.
Well, I don't know that the
Yes.
intermediate has anything or not. I
They
don't think
don't.
they do.
They don't.
I think if
Mine
they
definitely,
have
my little
something.
frame could have benefited from that.
Yeah.
This is definitely going to be something where, as we kind of talked before about streamlining and really treating primary and intermediate as an elementary as a one campus. If primary has that, that's definitely going to be something when we talk to the principals. How do we have that look here? Maybe not in the same form, but in another phase, so that K through 5, we have a kind of behavioral structure in place for students that need it.
To keep them out of passes. I had 2 girls that would go every day, every morning for 40 minutes. They've been reduced to 2 times a week now.
Right.
Because they've done so much better.
And I'm sure Ms. Avro can probably talk a little bit about PASS and the true intent with PASS, not trying to be this catch-all for everybody with a
Right.
discipline or behavioral problem. When PASS is really intended to be very specific and.
For severe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't want to try to
Little
keep
warrior
them out.
gets like the middle. you know? Because you'll hear them, it's really, when you see like a primary kid using the strategies, there's one kid that used to go quite frequent, now he doesn't, and there's two of them that go together. One gets frustrated, he's like, hey man, you gotta breathe. And then
Don't forget to
you hear that, and it's like, wow, it works, and then they don't have to go anymore. And it's, you know, they go with their peers, and sometimes I'm like, hey, that's pretty good, like, you know, but they need that, and then it's hard because now we have to like cut it off in second grade because they don't have that, so. And every teacher has
I'm
behaviors.
so glad y'all mentioned that because I was really hoping to hear some of that because I know that's a need like currently and like
It's a huge
forever.
They don't have
Huge.
ISS.
But if we know it's a
And they
need and
use
we're
it
not really
like a
doing anything to
positive
address it,
step.
that's on us.
Yeah.
But if we know that this is something that we're doing and it's effective and it's working, why are we not looking to kind of create that model elsewhere? Or how can we improve that or expand it to get the most out of it?
And it helps teachers because instead of us having to stop instruction to like
Exactly.
teach a kid strategies, Christina will come, teach them with like a group of peers and bring them back, and teacher is able to focus on instruction and not lose those like precious minutes. But every teacher in second grade has behaviors, so it's
Every
not
teacher
like
in kinder.
one person
Except for
trying to
dual language.
service, it's a,
I know.
and it would make teachers happy.
We're all
Of course.
inclusion, even though we're not inclusion, we're all inclusion.
Oh, I know. And that's why I asked the questions I'm asking because I'm very well aware of all
It's like-
this.
Yeah, it took like a whole year to get help for one of my kids. Like, I know it takes time with, and it's a lot of kids that need help, and we're short staffed, but like, it took like almost a whole year to
Shouldn't
get
take
my,
a year.
I had my
It's-
art today to finally get her approved,
It's
but she
just-
can't start till next year for her PT, OT, speech, her BIP, everything. It takes a long time.
But
What do
it
you-
shouldn't.
What do we say to that, Ms. Alvaro?
Be
There's a
patient.
lot of kids, and
Yeah.
there is, I mean.
We need more staff.
I can't disagree with you.
No.
That's the problem. Everything you're saying is, I think we all agree. It's just knowing that how do we continuously, move forward
think
and
that's-
not have that be an issue.
That's not just us.
Right.
I've been talking to other directors and it's everywhere, like the amount of behaviors or what have you that we're seeing.
Outweighing the amount of staff.
And I'm not sure, why, but we're seeing more of it. And it's not, I don't know, we can't really say COVID,
It's not COVID
but
anymore,
since
not with the
then,
little
we've
ones.
It's
seen
not
more.
But I think the hard thing that we're seeing is we're not identifying kids till second grade. And in second grade, they're supposed to be
Already a
reading
huge gap.
completely independently. So they're already so far behind, and for them to catch up, it's too late. Like catching them, if it's easier to get paperwork done in kinder,
It's not
their
though.
taste, no,
It's
but like,
because their age.
if we like,
You have to do
Figure it
speech
out,
and
like,
then
how to-
it has to be like severe.
It's because it's when they're small, it's hard to.
Right,
Yeah.
so they usually wait till first grade where the threshold's higher where they'll for sure qualify, because even then, like when you know they would qualify, they still pass and not end up having to wait another year.
There's quite a few that we're testing that are not qualifying as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
And
they're
I-
not to wait now.
And just so you guys know that are maybe not as familiar with the elementary levels, we do have a very high referral rate for special education.
Very high.
And so that's a little unusual. I'm not quite sure exactly
It's
what
because we're-
kind of data that should tell us. Like, what does that really say about things happening in just the department? I'm not sure.
Why we
Yeah,
have.
I don't know what.
So,
Wisdom.
oh, sorry, so to add on that, is there anything we can do as a district to help identify students quicker?
And that's part of the issue is like, I feel like we're like almost trying to make up for something that didn't happen in the past, or that we're doing something in response to something, because the amount of referrals we're making right now are like crazy. Like, it seems like every student's being referred for something or another.
Because even at ACC, we have such a small campus, but this year we've had
Well, the
close
majority
to
is your
30, 40 students who have qualified for SPED.
There's more
Who I'm
sped
like,
kids.
how are you qualifying as a
than there
senior when you've been here since kinder?
I honestly can't answer that question because I'm just not familiar with that late in the game being qualified for something, when if it didn't happen prior to like middle school, it probably wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I see is they don't qualify, but then they get further and further behind so what I say is, my thing is, if they don't qualify, what are we doing with them after that? Because if they didn't qualify, then they don't have a learning disability.
One part is at our campus, now that we have the interventionists, they're coming to the intervention. Well, a lot of them are already, so then they would just continue with us.
Unless they have a bit.
But we haven't had the interventionists that long, so hopefully
We
within
can start
time
seeing
we'll see,
some of
yeah.
that in the long
Because
term.
that's what I'm seeing is that then they don't, and then before you know it, they are LD, but really they weren't, so something happened in between.
Yes.
Are we gonna
Yes.
continue with T-top?
Good question. Do we want to?
I think it's best because, I mean, if T-top is gonna eventually take over STAR, which hopefully it will one day, I think it's giving us a leg up to see how T-top is gonna turn into the next STAR.
Okay, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
T-TAP? Oh my gosh. Talk to me.
My question,
T-TAP is one of those, you're either on this side of it or this
T-top,
side of
you
it.
tell me.
So I don't necessarily dislike T-TAP. I think, well, I'm social studies too, so like I don't have as much data to go off of, right?
Right.
I get them in 8th grade and they have never taken a social studies like standardized test.
Right.
And so like as like for 6th grade and on, you know, y'all all have ELA and math, they have all the data, right? And so I guess T-TAP is better for me to show that growth because I have no other measurement, right? The only thing about T-TAP is because it is just like a pilot program, we're losing instructional days to do it.
And that's been the
And we
big kind
test
of
3 times
complaint, that's it.
Yeah.
on top of STAR.
And I know the first two assessments are short, you can usually do them within like your class period, but still like I'm taking the hit, right?
Right.
Because those are the instructional days that I'm losing. And the thing with, social studies not having a standardized test until 8th grade, guess what is the least background knowledge they have?
That's right.
Social studies. So that, I don't dislike the test. I think it's great. I think it
Do they
is
have
the way
interim
of the future.
for social studies?
Yeah, they do. I'm sure they do.
They do.
So, that's my only thing is as a person that needs the instructional time, that's 3 days that I could get back on my calendar and not have to, it's not like we stop to review or anything like
Right,
that.
right.
We just push through, because I don't have the
interim
extra
would still
time.
be 2 days.
The
But that's,
interim? Well, yeah,
so you get 1 day.
well, I don't know, is it 2 days?
Reading, is it entering 2 days?
I think there's
Like
3
2 times?
opportunities. There's like 2 or 3
Two times.
opportunities to
2
test.
times.
2 times.
We did it, only 2 times this year.
Okay.
But I think science only did it one time, right?
Yeah,
we
the
would be
contents
more
were a bit
on the-
different.
Oh,
Like some
yeah.
had more chances than
Contents.
others.
Yeah, so probably we would probably be more around like science did it one time, so we would do it.
Okay. And then for next year, I just feel as a district, can we be more open about TIA? Because I feel like
Like, what do you mean open about TIA?
it was very hidden and it wasn't very upfront like other districts make it. Like I did not know the TIA plan. I didn't even know it was data collection year. I've asked admin so many times and they're like, no.
I'd say it's more of a campus thing then.
Yeah,
Because we,
It's so confusing,
all we do is talk about TIA on the campuses.
okay, because
All we do is talk about TIA on the campus. I'll say, what camp, I know what campus, trust me, but it's a little surprising to hear that because usually it's like TIA overload and people don't want to hear about any more of it right now because it's just so much.
We had a meeting at the end of last year because we had the whole TIA meeting.
Yes.
Was
yes.
that wasn't a DEIC meeting?
Pretty sure it was. Pretty sure it was. I don't know, I've had so many TIA meetings, it's hard to talk to me about TIA because I live and breathe it every day. And it's definitely a principal thing at this point because it's so driven by that campus and what that campus is needing to do for the evaluations or that specific assessment or which grade level or department is kind of, under the context of TIA. I guess I'd need to know more about what you would want or expect, whether it's from the campus, that principal, the administration team on that campus, or at the district, where you want to know more global things or just access to stuff.
Well, because I know that other districts have like one-on-one meetings with teachers, like the principals have one-on-one meetings and they have like a scorecard
Yeah.
saying like, okay, like right now this is where you're at,
All our
things like
campuses are
that.
doing that right now. That's what's happening, literally. on all
We
campuses.
haven't done that.
We have had no one-on-one score. I just figured out myself.
Okay, well, I'm saying like we are doing that right now, like I've had more conversations about TIA and calculating and trying to see if we can't adjust how TIA is calculated in DMAC.
We don't have the, I don't know.
That's just, I'm gonna back it up, let me get with you later on that. That to me is like, we'll address that, but there should be some level of TIA happening on all campuses, whether you're involved in it or not. That should just be kind of what's naturally happening because we're evaluating, it's the end of the year, we're STAR testing, all that's happening right now. So if there are questions or things not being done or met as an expectation, let me know. Let me know. Yes.
As far as when it comes to, I know it's gonna cover student growth and then your actual T-test.
Yep.
How is the preliminary data looking in the sense of like, are a lot of teachers who are meeting one but not the other, or vice versa? Like,
Yep, all over the place.
and is there gonna be adjustments for that in the sense of how the measurements are gonna be done, or is it gonna be more in the sense of like, let's get teachers where they should be so that they're meeting this criteria?
More of that. Because we can't adjust the calculations, they will be what they will be. We can kind of help manipulate them or put people in the best position to maximize what that calculation for them could be. And that's just part of what we'll have to learn going through this as a new district ourselves, with this being a very, very big kind of its own entity type thing with its own rules, its own structure, its own department with TA. It's literally like its own thing. After this year and knowing that we're kind of in the crucial phase with TIA where we are fast approaching the end, where we are going to get our STAR scores back, we will then start computing the calculations and determining if teachers are going to qualify or not. And that will be in about 3 or 4 months. Right around August, September, we will start doing that work and knowing the results. So TIA won't probably be talked about too much in the meantime, not until around end of July, early August. Will we kind of pick things back up with that and definitely make that more of a thing, because it's going to be more of a real thing at that point, because we'll know if we're fully approved, if things are going to actually start happening. Because at this point, we're talking as if all these things are going to happen, but that's assuming they're going to pass us through at the very end here, knowing that in the next 2 months, we'll know if that happens or not. So I promise that for next year, things will definitely be more clear and transparent. And also because we do as a district have a handbook, we have all the things laid out. I think, like you said, it's just more of trying to get it out there and being available for those who want to have more conversations or time to talk about that. Not to mention, TIA will involve more people next year because we're phasing in a different group of teachers. And so it'll definitely be more of a thing because it's going to involve more people.
Do you know if they decided to just do our December scores, or?
I don't know what they decided. I think they're waiting until it all comes in to see how it kind of starts looking. Because we can kind of decide prior to sending how we want it to kind of go up, which is kind of a nice thing. We can then talk and say, okay, this is really what we need to be doing because the majority of our teachers did the best this way. And so we'll kind of do some things to maximize the values of the calculations, trust me. We just need the results to come back. Right now, we're just waiting on STAR. One other question I had, I'm sure you all probably don't want to hear this word, but EduHero, and just knowing that I am personally getting down to the wire on my little due dates that I have, and knowing that I would say the vast majority of those who did the survey, that did the compliance trainings, either kind of did a hybrid of it or the majority of it kind of was done at work. I'm not so much concerned with how the time was spent doing it. It was just so much at this point. I have a list of those who just didn't do it.
To do all that,
Like just didn't do it. And I'm still surprised because they still haven't done it.
I want that day off.
And so,
I wanted the day off.
and to me, I'm not gonna say I'm about to just practice my delegation responsibilities right now, but I'm going to delegate to the committee. If you had to make the decision as far as who should be the group to be focused on to come to work that day, should it be just as that group that did nothing, or should I start figuring out the time people spent working on this at work versus at home and doing that, or just going after those who didn't do it? Because what I can do is very simple. We can do it like this. I will only talk to those who didn't do it, and then they will be the ones to have to come in that day to work and literally come in to do that work. And then everybody else who completed, you're good. Or I could kind of differentiate it and write individual letters and explain to you on an individual basis kind of what that day will look like for you.
That sounds like too much work for you.
That's probably why I haven't done it yet.
It's like I'm gonna open you.
In the initial announcement, sorry, in the initial thing that you sent out.
Yes, I
you
did.
say
I did.
that it had to be
I did.
done at
I said it
home?
one time. I just did it one time because I was like wanting to see just who would remember or point to that. I've had so many people point to that. I love it. Because it lets me know you did read that email and you remember exactly what it
But
said.
that was the reason for the day off.
Exactly.
That was the whole reason.
That was the whole reason. So
Because it's
now
a lot
that
of
I'm
hours.
reneging on all that a bit, because I'm trying to just not make this a thing. Although I feel like I'm turning it
Because
into a thing.
I'm gonna be at work that day, because I needed 3 more, but I couldn't get, like, I was trying to do them that weekend, and I couldn't because it locked me out, so I'll be here. But then I couldn't finish them even at, because I still wanted to do them even then, even though it was after the day, just because I should do them, right?
But yeah.
But then now I can't because it wouldn't lock, it locked me out. But
Oh,
I'll
so
be
it locked
here.
them out at that date? Or they could still go in and do them?
They can still go and do
But
it.
if they didn't do them by that date,
They won't
they
let
don't
you.
qualify.
They won't let you?
No, because I tried.
Oh, okay.
Because I tried on
Then that's
that.
the reason why they
That's
still
why
have it.
nobody's doing it.
I'm like, dang, like, even after another month or something.
Yeah, because I tried.
But it's not like
to do
anybody's
one.
reached out to me trying to figure out like, hey,
Oh, they haven't done it.
how do I?
It was midnight, sir. It let me finish that one, and then I was gonna do the other one, and I couldn't.
Oh my God.
So,
Maybe he won't notice.
12:01.
so I'll be here.
It's not gonna
I'll be at
it's like,
work.
He hasn't said anything yet, he's not gonna
They're
say
so
anything now.
boring
right?
and so long.
Oh, I know, trust me.
We used to just.
I have to do them
We
too.
used to do them together here real quick.
I know.
Videos
And so
done.
what we're doing, because I was, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I just want to say like, this is kind of like my experimental year with this one, because I just wanted to see if I did something a little bit different and a little just like out of the norm, how would that be handled? It was handled exactly the way I thought it would be handled. If you give more people time, they don't do anything with it. They don't do anything with it.
But didn't you?
It's just the tried and true. You can give all the time in the world. It's just not going to be something people get to very often until they absolutely have to, because they have 9 months,
Yes.
8
The
months,
last week.
9 weeks.
I did it the Friday.
I did mine like 3 days before I had to, so I was just as guilty as everybody else. So knowing that, we're going to do that a little bit differently, and we're going to have that like. We're gonna get that thing knocked out at the very, very beginning, so it's just not gonna be a thing that.
Yeah, so get her day off.
Stay out here. Be closer to work. If you think about their business,
I did get fired.
you should know this stuff. Exactly.
At the
At
time
the
that you.
beginning of the school. Not at the end.
Yes. So with all that said, that's the reason
Some of us have done them
why.
all
Yeah.
10
But
times.
now you know why no one finished,
Now, I'd
because you
say.
can't get back in.
I was, to me, I'm like, I put my little research cap on, I was like, hey, I wanna like, see if I can like prove something here, like, they have all the time, so I should have no problems with anybody completing. Nope, still ran into the same problem.
And you sent a lot of reminders.
I mean, you have to do these at every district.
I appreciate that.
Anywhere you go.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you know that at my last district,
It was my
had to
accomplishment.
have them done before the first day of school.
We used to do that.
Yeah.
We're year round, so none of those funny rules apply to us here, because we can have it, I can have that be whenever I want my first like time period to be, because I can create the calendar that way.
Yeah.
So I just literally did it in reverse, just to see if that would make a difference for people.
No, so the one we did this year is for next year, so we're done for next year.
Now you're really thinking like me. Now you're really thinking like me. I'm like, how do I make this like a 2-year thing? How do I cover you for this year and for next year?
Yeah, if I did it in the spring, it's a 2024. Let's roll.
Let's roll.
Year round.
They wouldn't split them up. You have to do these by this date, these by this date.
That's what's gonna happen. We're gonna kind of split it up a little bit. So
And then-
it's gonna be the same, but a different look, and it's gonna be much more like aligned to kind of how it should be, and it'll be where we'll all have it done, because it's gonna be something we're gonna have an opportunity to get to at the same time, and it won't be a thing. Exchange days and all that, like, I don't know what that'll look like next year. I just know that for this year, if you completed your trainings, you're good. I'm not going to contact you. You're fine. But if you didn't do it and you hear from me, just don't be surprised when you're sitting in the room with me and Yolanda. Because apparently Yolanda and I are working that day.
Yeah, there was a second grade teacher who was working on the trainings, and then she ended up going into surgery. Her appendix was going to rupture.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she had one left. And so I was like, you might want to email him and like let him know. I mean, she was like, I saved it for the last minute, but she literally went to the hospital.
Yeah,
So
she
I
was
don't
gone
know.
all week.
Yeah, she was gone all week.
Should that be the exception to the rule because of the
I feel like I would. I texted her. I was like, hey, did you ever
break it in.
She was really stressed.
That's why you don't procrastinate.
Just have her summarize all that to me. That way, if nothing else, I can just save it as an email and bring it back to me like that. And we will,
I was doing it the last
don't let that be, tell her not to stress on
She
that.
got a whole ambulance ride and everything, you know.
It's like, you're talking to the ENT like, sir, like, I've got this one video left, like, do the IV in the foot, I need my hands so I can type. I can see, I
Since
can
I only
honestly see a
needed
teacher
3,
saying
maybe
that.
I could just do a half day.
Oh my gosh. Say, on that note, we had a few more policy pieces to talk about. The one big thing I just wanted to say, and then we'll definitely get out of here because it's getting a little late. EIC is a policy that at the high school level is going to have a big change for next year. And as we revamp EIC, which is the academic achievement policy, where in that policy we outline how GPA, how class rank, how transcripts, how all that stuff works. That's going to go over, that policy is being overhauled by the state currently because it always is one of those policies that constantly gets updated. In the context of the state's updates, we as a district are going to finalize our local updates as far as how new GPA will work for the incoming 8th graders at middle school. So we're going to run a staggered GPA for our incoming 8th grade. That's going to be on a new GPA scale, and our current cohorts that are going to be phased out of our old GPA scale. Because we're adding in a 3rd tier. And we're going to structure some things differently so that we feel that we can honor the work that students are doing a little bit better versus how things are currently being set up. And so when we do the review of the key policies, that's going to be one big piece that will change for next year. And under that change, the secondary grading guidelines also went through a revamp and update. And so all those things that are being done for next year, you will hear more about that. But just know that those are things being worked on currently that are policies that will be updated for next year. There's a whole bunch of others, but to me, that was the biggie just because of the implications it has for us as a district with the new GPAs. Dr. D, did you have anything that you want to add on that? For the group here?
It's just the multipliers it's going to be a little challenging to do. I mean, we'll get it done, but it's where it used to be that the honors courses and dual credit would receive the 10 extra points and calculated into their GPA. Now it's going to be a multiplier of, if it's honors dual credit, it's going to be a multiplier of 1.15. If it's a practicum and dual credit for CTE, it's a 1.10. Honors and dual credit elective is a 1.05, and then regular courses is just a 1.
I like that change. I think that's, it really is gonna motivate kids to sign up for those honors and dual credit core classes. And I mean, personally, I don't know, you teach honors classes, so I'm sure you probably have an opinion about this, but I think in honors math class, you have to do a whole lot more work than you do in volleyball or an athletics course, you know? So I think that those kids should get a little bit more out of that class than they do out of an athletics class. I do agree with giving them some extra credit, you know, giving them that multiplier in athletics, because if you're an athlete and you're on varsity, you're going to practices, you're going to games, you're not getting the same time at home to do work that other kids are getting. So I agree with that too, but I think that there needs to be, I like that system.
Me too. It's going to be different, and obviously, as you know, when we make this type of change, in order to accommodate and make it work, systematically, we have to update our system, and as we know, we use eSchool Plus, and as we know, we're maybe not always the biggest fan of that system, And so knowing that, we are definitely monitoring that situation with eSchool, and knowing that eSchool really hasn't been what we've wanted it to be, we are definitely looking at how to kind of move forward, maybe possibly doing something different than eSchool, just knowing that we are currently not getting what we need from that system. Whether it's a campus user, a district user, it doesn't matter. We're all struggling with that system. Please know that as we know about that, we're working currently to put a plan in place to address all that. Meaning that we're probably going to put a plan in place to move ourselves away from eSchool at some point, so that long-term, we're not running into the continuous problems that we've had to run into the last 3 years with trying to calculate and get things to be accurate. We're going to try to do something different so that we can not have that be a problem for us anymore.
Just know that if we change the grading system, you're gonna have to have trainings, because my people are going to complain.
I know, trust me. I'm about to rework all that PD money that we like to spend through contracted services, the Kelly Harmons of the world, the Trinity Elites of the world. Probably not going to be a whole lot of that happening anymore, unfortunately.
Kelly can go back.
But we
Kelly's
love
okay?
Kelly can just talk, but Gigi
She
wasn't
gives us
here.
presents.
Yeah, she wasn't here.
So we're going to take all that money and really kind of move it back more towards the district level to provide more streamlined support for things like PEEMS, systems, classroom management, just things that if we don't have something in place, you're probably not going to get that type of training. And so we know that. I know as a committee we've talked about that. And so we're going to address all that for next year. Whether it's, we're going to have a group of teachers and you may not even know you're going to be involved, but you're going to this training, so enjoy your 3 days and come back and share with the group. There's going to be a lot of that happening next year. So if there is a specific need or a request of some kind, just make sure someone knows about it, like this guy right here, since I'm the one that approves everything.
If I find one in Hawaii, will you send me?
As long as we have the money. As long as we have the money. We were about to send somebody to Florida the other day.
Documentation training.
For what, like what kind of documentation training?
Just like how we do our MTSS, because like everybody does it different. So when we have to like refer a kid, every teacher does it differently.
Sean, did you hear that? Write down MTSS training.
So that was documentation.
And documentation.
And behavior management.
I'll take the notes too for you, don't worry.
Come on back.
Yes, definitely. That's going to be a part of the DMAC training that we're also going to do. And also knowing that for first year and new teachers to the district, we're going to have an entire new like academy and year structure for them to go through to where they're going to have better support. And that will also not just include new teachers, but also kind of our 0 to 3 year group. And so we're not going to necessarily force those that are kind of 2 year, 3 year, but if they like to keep their hand raised and be a part of it, they're definitely welcome to join us in that group for next year. And so all that information will be coming out in the next month or so after Dr. Shama and I spend all weekend, all summer together, putting all this together.
And I will say that ESC is getting ready. I think I don't know, they've already hired, but they're going to hire, if they haven't already, a consultant that's only for MTSS.
Yes, yes.
The way that special ed testing is changing, it's called CSEP or something like that, but it's going to be based, the referrals are going to be based on data. And I told them, if you're going to do that, then y'all need to make sure that everybody, the whole state, it gets some type of MTSS, because we can't, right now, based on data, we would not be able to say the student. I mean, it's not enough. So, but now that's kind of what they're wanting. So they did say, yes, we're going to have MTSS, a person for every region to kind of help. So I thought that was good, because we're going to need that for our referrals. So.
All right, Dr. D, what else you got?
I just wanted to say two things. The first one is I just have to commend our school principal. When we were meeting in here one day, and it was the day that Mr. Van Matry had to send out the letters for the students who were going to be a part of the superintendent advisory team. And he's like, man, and all the counselors were new. He's like, counselors, I'm gonna need your help. I'm gonna send out these letters. I know we're gonna have some disappointed kiddos. Mr. Alvarado was sitting right there and he's writing all this stuff down. He's like, don't worry about it. I have a plan. He said, I'm gonna get with Adias. We're gonna have a principals advisory committee. So those kids that didn't make the superintendent, we're gonna have a principal one. I was like, man, that's like perfect.
That's my daughter.
So yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was perfect. And along those lines, one of my students, one of my frequent flyers, he comes in all the time. He's always, he's so logistically minded. I love this kid. And he's got his whole, his whole, not just his 4-year plan for high school, he has his 4-year plan for college and beyond. And so he comes in and he's in our OTC and he says, I see that there's band, there's honors football. He said, but there's no honors ROTC. I said, well, sweetie, you're on the principal's advisory committee. Man, I said, take it to the committee. So that's one thing that I just kind of wanted to say, at least it would fall under the 1.05 if it gets approved. But and because they do, ROTC, they go to the football game, they do the color guard, they do all of our events, all of our
It's a good
banquets.
opportunity for him to make that case.
Yes.
Make a really good one.
It counts as a PE class, so I mean, it's technically kind of an athletic.
It is.
That's
But it's
kind of
ever, but you don't ever really think about ROTC and like how to kind of talk about that in terms of GPA.
Yeah.
And should it be at this level or that level? I'd be
But they
curious
go to
to hear
competitions
about that.
and stuff, just like band.
There's a lot of arguments for that, so.
So, and he's building them, trust me.
Good luck to him whenever he's ready. I hope he's, Mr. Alvarado is ready for that.
I'm sure you will.
It's awesome. All right, everybody. If there's nothing else, I just wanted to say I appreciate the year, your time and your commitment, your dedication to just volunteering, but also working at the level of the district to help the district from your standpoint, how we can improve, how we can be better. And so knowing that everybody that was a part of the committee this year, I just wanted to let you all know that if there is interest, if you are a second-year member, if there's interest from you to continue, just please email me. If you are a 1-year member, I'm going to assume you want to rejoin and be back, since technically that's part of the agreement you signed up for at the beginning. But if that's no longer the case and you decide 1 year is plenty and you need a year off because you've got a hobby you need to go explore or figure out what you actually like doing again, since you've been spending all your time in this committee, that's fine too. No big deal. So I'll be in contact about all that. Just know that if you'd like to join again, or if not, that is your freedom to make that choice. And with that said, hope everybody has a great rest of your afternoon, rest of the year. And thank you so much for a great 23-24 year.